Hey, what's up, guys? I wanted to take some time to make a video to begin my discussion on the Enneagram, and this is going to be kind of an introductory video just to share with you sort of my connection to it and how I became aware of the Enneagram and what it's done in my own life and what it's done for me personally and my family and church that I serve, ministry. And if you're new to the study of the Enneagram, then this is a good place for you to begin. If you've been studying the Enneagram for a while, then this is just gonna be a personal story, that will help you hopefully in your own experience, develop that experience a little richer. I guess I first heard about the Enneagram about 6 months ago from the time of making this video. And I guess, I came across it. I think one of my daughters pointed it out to me. And I pretty much looked at it like it was, just another personality inventory, which, over the years I've taken a lot of these through higher education and just personal interest. In counseling people, I was really aware mostly of Myers-Briggs and the DISC personality test. So, when I talk to couples, when I talk to people, I tended to talk to them in terms of golden retrievers and beavers and otters and lions, and I'm sure you guys all know those analogies. For your own personal interest, I am pretty much a otter and golden retriever, a little bit of lion, but almost no beaver. So I like to take things as they come, and definitely a ENFP. And I've learned a lot over the years with Myers-Briggs, and there's a lot of ENFP that's good, and there's a lot about ENFP that frustrates me. And I guess if I could just wave a magic wand, I would be an ENTJ, because it seems like to me those are the people that get junk done. Those are the people that get stuff done. And that F in me, that feeling type, tends to want to be careful with people's feelings, and so sometimes I'll beat around the bush rather than just being direct. And so I've had to learn, to get things done, you have to be more direct, and that's not comfortable for me. And the J, I'm a P, so I like to keep my options open. And I many times wish I was a J, because J's tend to settle down, make a decision, and then act on that decision. That perceiving type in me wants to, go with the flow, keep the options open, and not get tied down, because it limits all your other choices. And all of that makes sense, but I am an ENFP, and I've had to just come to deal with that. I learned, when I was going through graduate school and I had to write dissertations and thesis and all that stuff in those long papers and everything, that I could shift over into, I think, what Myers-Briggs calls your shadow personality, which is, I guess, I'm not exactly sure how that works, but to me it seems like it's the ISTJ, which is the exact opposite of the ENFP. And so I would say, I felt like I had to split myself into two people. There was the creative designing type person who wanted to do all the research and get all the information, but then there was that ISTJ part of me that would just, sit down and just type and get the information done and do what has to be done to finish the job. And I think that's kind of typical of ISTJs, is they're just kind of like dump trucks, throw it in the dump truck and I'll just do what needs to be done. ENFPs want to be creative and all that, and sometimes that's great, but other times you just have to get it done. You just have to finish the project. So I was familiar with Myers-Briggs, I was familiar with the DISC, and used those extensively in counseling with people and in just understanding people. But then one of my daughters turned me on to the Enneagram, and at first I looked at it like just another one of those personality profiles. Do I really have time for this? And I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I took the time. I didn't understand anything about it. It's just a weird symbol, this crazy looking star thing. And the first book that I got, and by the way, on the Enneagram, I am a 7. I'm the 7-6. And if you know the subtypes, to further, share that, I'm the counter 7, which is, I want to do all these fun things, want to have all this adventure, want to do all this excitement, but then the counter 7 is the one that pulls back and says, well, it's probably not going to work out. It's probably not going to, turn out the way that, you envision it. And so you just kind of, tell yourself no, which in a sense is probably a good thing, because I imagine I've been able to get a lot more accomplished in life because I didn't act on every impulse anyway. But I am a 7, or the enthusiast. I do identify as that. And when I first picked up the book, or the first book I got on the Enneagram was this one right here, The Enneagram Made Easy. And it's a relatively simple book. It's got a lot of illustrations in it, for example. And I figured, what better place to start than, the Enneagram Made Easy. And so as I just began flipping through this and just reading through some of it, and talking about it with my kids and my wife, we were immediately able to sort of figure out, where most of our kids were and where my wife was. My wife is a 2, and the helper. And we were able to surmise from just this little book here, where most of us fit on the Enneagram. And this began to intrigue me because I started to realize that, it began to be somewhat descriptive of where you go in times of stress and in times of health, in times of security. And so, I read through this book pretty quickly, and then I started ordering, because where do 7s go? They go to 5, right? So 7s become enthusiasts, become investigators. And so I wanted to dive in and get as much information as I could, and I became completely consumed with reading and learning and digesting the information as quickly as possible. The next book I read was The Road Back to You. I found it to be very helpful, very encouraging from a Christian perspective, but not like, restrictive in the sense of like people who aren't Christians, I think, would still very much benefit from a book like this. It wasn't, overtly religious, so to say, but this book was extremely helpful. I would say that it is easily within the top 10 books that I've ever read in my life. And you guys know I don't ever show you on my videos, but I'm surrounded by a pretty extensive library, and of course Kindle books and all that. But this book was extremely helpful, easily in the top 10, probably in the top 5 books I've ever read. Very helpful. And then of course I got the companion book, The Path Between Us, and this book is extremely helpful as well. I couldn't really recommend one over the other. I tend to just tell people start with this one because that's the one I started with, but this one is just every bit as helpful. So these two combined, if somebody asked me now, say, hey, I want to read something about the Enneagram, where should I start? These would be the two I would recommend. These 2 books would be the ones that I would point to first, especially if it's a Christian person, because it puts things in Christian language, which is a little easier, I think, for some believers to accept. So these would be the first 2 that I would suggest. Both of those were just extremely helpful. And then I read The Sacred Enneagram, and I thought this was good. I thought it was I don't know that I would highly recommend it, but I thought it was good. I thought its bit about, resting in stillness and solitude and all of that, I thought was helpful. And then I got the big book right here, The Wisdom of the Enneagram by Don Richard Riso and Russ Hudson. And you can see this is a pretty thick book. And guys, I literally, when I say I read it, every page you can see. Every morning I would wake up and I would spend 2 hours in this book, or an hour in this book. And when you get to the chapter 7, I think that was probably the first chapter I read. I interacted. When I say read, I interacted with this. This was extremely helpful. This is a book that I will probably go back and read over and over and over again. This is by far, without a doubt, the most comprehensive and most helpful of all the books that I came across. So I would highly recommend this if you're ready for it. If you want something light and you want something more simple, go with these. But this one is. And then I went on to read Understanding the Enneagram. This also is an extremely helpful book, and one of the things that it does that the other books don't do is at the end of at the end of the book, there's a section that says, here's some recommendations for each type. If you are a 1, then here's 10 things. With each of the numbers, it'll give you 10 steps, that you can take right now that can help change your life, change your dynamic. And, often what happens when you begin explaining Enneagram information to people, they go, okay, that's really great. I see, better who I am. I can put into language, why I do what I do. I see where I go in times of stress. I see what happens in times of security. But, what does it really mean? What do I really do with this information? This book is the one that really helps you answer that, because there's 10 steps for every type. Extremely helpful book. So I would highly recommend this book as well, besides just the information, in the rest of the book as it explains each type. It doesn't do it nearly as comprehensive as this book does, but very, very useful. And then this book, The Complete Enneagram by Beatrice Chestnut, another awesome book, extremely helpful. Honestly, maybe because I didn't think the cover looked a little feminine to me. These look a little more, I don't know. But I kind of sat this one over on the shelf, and I put it off last. And, it's extremely helpful. Very good book. I'm still working through a stack of other books, Here's some more, that I'm working on. And I've got a couple more on Kindle that I don't have here. There's one on parenting, or a couple on parenting that I have there. Here's one on leadership and how it affects, the Enneagram and leadership, and bringing out the best in yourself and others at work, bringing out the best in everyone you coach. There's a lot of information, which is great. It's great that we have so much information available to us. I began this journey as a student. I began this journey, really going to 5 and saying, okay, I want to understand as much as I can. I want to digest this. And I was just overwhelmed with how helpful and practical the Enneagram is. Understanding yourself and why you do what you do, and why you're impulsed and compelled to do what you do, and learning, really, ultimately, I think what I learned through the process of not only studying and analyzing, you should say, the Enneagram, but then also teaching it in the local church that I'm in. I went through a comprehensive 10 weeks, teaching this information with my daughter Grace and I in the church. What I really learned through all of this is that we are not very present to life. We all get stuck in our patterns. We get stuck in our impulses and our compulsions that are a part of our fallenness. And our impulses drive us. Our compulsions drive us. If you're a 1, for example, you're impulsed and compulsed to be good and to try to do the right thing and be responsible. And sometimes that can lead one's perfectionists, whatever you want to call them, to be so focused on what's inaccurate and what's incorrect and what could be done better, and that they're not present to what is. In other words, they can't enjoy the family that's around them, their actual family, because the family is not living up to the ideal, or their children are not living up to their ideal standard of what they should be. And each of the types wrestles with this being present. I can tell you from my own personal experience as a 7, as an enthusiast, that 7s tend to live in the future possibilities and future plans. It's why we are probably, most of us, P's on the Myers-Briggs, because we want freedom. We want freedom to move on to the next thing, the next big thing. Reaching out for something else. Like 4s, the individualists, believe that there's something missing within them. 7s often feel like they're missing out on something. Like there's just that one thing out there. If I could complete my collection, if I could just reach out there and get that one last thing and add it to my collection, then I'd be fulfilled. Or if I could just have that experience, or just amp up that experience, or raise that energy. An enthusiast, would be on a motorcycle and going 70 miles an hour and think, all this needs is a good radio on. And if I could just turn the music on, then this would be perfect. And then you turn the music on, you adapt your bike with a radio, and then you think to yourself, now if I could just whatever, have if I could add, the saddlebags to the back so I could carry stuff. It's just never enough. And all of us struggle with these impulses. And I think that the Enneagram has been really helpful for me to recognize when those impulses are being generated, and then to separate myself from that and say, okay, I feel this, I have this thought going through my head, but I don't necessarily need to act on it. I don't necessarily have to believe that I'm missing out on something. I can accept that I'm feeling this way, and I can understand it, and then I can let that impulse pass and just be present to life as it is right now and say, I'm not missing out on anything. I don't need anything to make me happy. I can be happy right now. And what I learned most of all as a 7 through this study, is about being present to life, is if I constantly need something out there to make me happy or to complete my experience in some way, if I'm always in need of something, then I can never really enjoy what's in front of me. I can't really enjoy what I have right now because I'm always looking forward to what am I missing out on. And you can't focus on enjoying anything right now because you're always focused on what you're missing or what you're missing out on. And so the Enneagram has been extremely helpful in me coming to terms with this is a fallenness. This is a mark of fallenness, that this world that we are in is broken, and there are basically 9 different ways that we have patterned ourselves in order to deal with this brokenness. The 3 on the top, the 8, the 9, and the 1 are wrestling with anger and reality and life, and it just seems like everything's coming at you and you got to deal with it, and they're dealing with their frustration and their anger. And then the 3 over on the side, the 2, 3, and 4 are dealing with shame and value and asking themselves directly or indirectly, am I really worth anything? Am I a person of value? Am I lovable? Does anybody ever going to really love me? And then the 5, 6, and the 7 over on the side that I'm on, are dealing with fear. The fear of, the anxiety that exists in the world. Either fears coming from without or fears that generate from within. But we're all dealing with fear in some way. And so I would encourage you, if you're beginning a study on the Enneagram, to continue watching the videos that I'm going to upload. I'm going to take a lot of time and just try to unpack what the Enneagram is all about and what it means for each type, what I've learned, what I've observed by watching other people and in conversation with other people. And remember, I've got 5 kids, right? So, and which, I've learned a lot just by recognizing what their numbers are and what they need in life. And of course, from my marriage, recognizing what my wife's needs are and learning to be more compassionate with each other, that all of us are fallen. We all have our, sort of crazy ways we do things and ways we think. That not everybody sees the world the way we do. If you're not standing on the number 7, then you obviously see the world in a different way or a different light. And it helps me be more compassionate with people. Compassionate with myself, that, but also compassionate with everybody else. That we're all operating from a sense of fallenness and brokenness, which just goes to support what we read in the Bible. So I want to welcome you on this journey. I'm excited that you are watching this video, and I hope to make many more videos that will be helpful to you and share with you what I've learned through this process. And I hope it can be transformative in your life, and that you will be a better person because of this study, and that you will have deeper, more significant relationships, more compassion, more understanding will grow in your own life, and in your marriage, if you're married, or with your kids or grandkids, and share some of the experiences that have developed in my study and my understanding the Enneagram. So again, I'm glad that you're on this journey with me. I've added to the description of these videos more information about myself, personal information, but also how you can get in contact with me. If you want to talk privately, through Skype, we can arrange that. If you want, encouragement or relationship care for yourself or for someone in your family or whatever, you can contact me through the information listed below. I think it's right down here below the video in the description. I'm certainly available and would make myself available to help in any way I can. Also, if you want me to come and speak or share with your at your event, to speak to a small group or to speak to a large group about the Enneagram from a Christian perspective, I can do that. And any way that I can help you or your organization or your church, I would love to make myself available to you guys. So, like always, have a great day. Be present to life. Be compassionate with other people. Get to know yourself and have some compassion on yourself. And just think about how much God loves you and try to love yourself. And thank God for His grace and His mercy. And then be gracious and merciful to the people in your life. All right, guys. You guys have a great day, and we'll talk to you again next time.